guys, how's it going? Today we are going to talk about 10 underrated shrubs that I think every garden should have. We've got all 10 of these in our garden. They perform really well for us. And I don't know if these are just less known varieties. I don't see them used a tremendous amount in a lot of gardens. Or maybe they are just so common that we easily overlook them and they're those powerhouse type plants. I don't know. Either way, these are really nice shrubs. The first one is the button bush, Cephalanthus occidentalis. I think I won't have botanical names for all of these, but the variety that we have in our garden is Sugar Shack. Now, each one of these categories we're going to talk about have a lot of different varieties that you could plant that have different growth habits and all that kind of stuff, but I can really only speak on the experience I have of certain varieties. So Sugar Shack has been a really good one for us. The reason why I love this one, there's several actually, but they have a very glossy, like extra glossy green leaf in the summertime. And in a high desert, dry climate, having something that's glossy adds a lush factor that not a lot of plants do add. They don't ever look dry. They just look bright and they show up in a flower bed. They also don't get massive. About 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. So I would say maybe that's like a medium-sized shrub. So you want to tuck it back a little bit in a border, but it's not massive to where you need a huge amount of space for it. It also spans a wide range of zones. It's a zone 4 through 10, and you don't often find shrubs that can span that wide of a range. And their blooms are super unique. They're little round white spheres that in the interior of the sphere, it's like little tight flowers all in rows, and then they have these little things that kind of stick out, which make them look a little bit firework-esque. They're just very unique. They are fragrant, they attract pollinators, and they bloom on new wood. So if they sustain some winter damage, or maybe if you have deer pressure and deer have grazed on them, they will produce new wood in your current season and will still produce flowers. One other thing about that one that I like, which is not the case for us so much, but if you have a boggy situation, a very wet area in a flower bed that's in like fold apart sun, this plant can handle it and it will actually like you for it. We have ours on drip irrigation. It just gets the same amount of water as all of our other kind of standard shrubs and perennials get, and it does really well with that. So long as the water is consistent, I think it will perform really well. But if you have extra wet soil, it can also take that. Number 2 is a sweet shrub, which is Calycanthus. The variety we have in our garden is Aphrodite. And actually, I forgot to mention number 1, 2, and 3 on my list are all plants that when I very first saw them in other gardens, I thought that would never survive. These would never survive in our garden, and they have proven me wrong, which has been amazing. But the Aphrodite sweet shrub is just, the blooms are huge. They're huge. They're kind of a deep burgundy red, and which is kind of an odd flower color for me to put in my garden, but it's so on the cool side of red that it fits in beautifully, and they look like giant magnolia blooms, but they bloom all summer long, and they are so fragrant. And the interesting thing about the fragrance is that it depends on where you're at. It depends on what time of day it is. It depends on their climate, but some people say they can't smell anything from them. Some people say they smell like bubble gum or green apple or have a fruity smell. Ours smell like when you have grapes that are ripening on the vine and they're sitting there in the sun, that kind of pungent grape smell. That's what I get from ours, and I love it. It also has glossy leaves, which bring the lush factor again, and they are large, bold leaves, so they really add a lot of weight to a flower bed. They'll grow from 5 to 10 feet tall and wide, so it's something that you really want to locate somewhere where it can grow to its full size. They do bloom on old and new wood, though, so you know, if you have to prune on them from time to time, it's not going to inhibit their ability to bloom, which is nice. They like fold apart sun. We have ours planted out in our south garden, which is full on sun all day long, and they do really well. I have one that's about 3 years old at this point, and then I've planted 3 new ones this year. I've loved them that much. Number 3 is the Chitalpa, which is a blend between a desert willow and a catalpa. The variety we have is El Nino. I think I've talked about it lots of different times in videos because I've been so blown away by the performance of this plant, and there was a moment where I thought that it was going to succumb to the elements here. We planted ours out last year. I think it was 101 degrees when I planted them. They were in bloom when I planted them as well, and they've got these huge panicles of fluffy pink blooms that look like a fancy orchid or like one of the butterfly series of Snapdragon. and they did not mind it one bit. I kept a close eye on them. They didn't wilt. The blooms didn't burn. They just kept on growing. So fast forward to the next spring, this spring, it didn't seem like they were going to break dormancy. I thought the winter took them, that they just couldn't handle our wintertime temperatures, because we did get down below 0 this year. But I didn't get around to digging them out, and I'm so thankful I didn't, because they must just be a late one to break dormancy. But when they did, they exploded with growth, and you should see them right now. They are at least 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide at this point. They will grow into kind of a small tree size, which I didn't realize when I planted them where I put them. They'll grow, I think, 10 to 15 feet tall, 8 to 10 feet wide. So definitely put them somewhere where they can do that. Absolutely worth planting. The fragrance they bring, I mean, they perfume like the whole section where they're planted, and it's unlike any other smell. It's amazing. I do like their leaves too. They're kind of a medium green, slight gloss to them, and they're kind of long and narrow. They are a zone 6 through 9, so a little bit less range on the zone scale. We are a zone 6, and they did it here. So I'm excited to see what they do in the future. I now have 6 in our garden. That's how much I love that plant. Number 4 are Oakleaf Hydrangeas. I just do not see as many Oakleaf varieties being planted. I see a ton of Paniculata and Arborescens and Macrophylla, you know, the ones that have the blue and purple tones being planted. But Oakleaf Hydrangeas, which is Hydrangea quercifolia, they are amazing. They are, I mean, they bring such an interesting texture just with their leaf shape. We have Gatsby Gal out in our garden, which I think they want to grow about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. But even before they start blooming, their leaves are just huge, oak shaped. And they're a deep green in the summertime, and then they turn the most beautiful burgundy red in the fall. So just with your leaves, you get an amazing show and amazing texture. The blooms, though, they bloom fairly early, and they come out with these massive panicles, but they're kind of open and airy, so it gives them kind of a sparkly effect. They're a creamy white when they open, and then they quickly turn to a pink, so you get kind of that range of color as well as the leaves being so awesome. Here in our area, I do find that they benefit from a little bit of protection from our hot afternoon sun, like late afternoon, early evening, but they do need a good block of sun in order to be productive. So ours get a block in the morning, like morning through midday, and I find that that's kind of just perfect for us. If you're in more of a mild climate, they might be able to be out in full sun for a lot longer. But I feel like that is a variety that should be planted more, because I want to venture to say that they're even more interesting than the other varieties of hydrangea we have. We've got some really beautiful ones. I mean, I love our Incrediballs, our Limelight Primes, our Quickfires are awesome, but they do not have the leaves that these Oakleaf Hydrangeas do, which I love them. The Gatsby Gal is a zone 5 through 9, and you might find a little bit of variation depending on what variety you choose to plant. The blooms are not affected by soil pH like they are with the Serrata or Macrophylla type hydrangeas, and it's kind of nice to know that. They do bloom on old wood, so that's something to keep in mind. You want to pick a variety that will fit the space that you have for it, and there are a lot of different Oakleaf varieties out there. Ruby Slippers and Munchkin are a couple that stay a little bit smaller. I like the ones we have so much, though. The Gatsby Gals are so pretty. There's also Gatsby Pink, there's Gatsby Star, might be Gatsby Moon out there. They're all really beautiful varieties. So just keep that in mind when you go to choose one. Make sure you pick one that will fit, and that way you don't ever have to prune it. Ours are so low maintenance. Number 5 is the Glow Girl Spirea. There are so many Spirea varieties out there, and we've had pretty good luck with most of the ones that we plant. But the Glow Girl, I have just one right now, and I need to add more. I've got it on the west side, and it's so beautiful every single year, 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. It comes out with kind of like that fresh, bright chartreuse with a little bit of orange and red on the tips, the new leaf growth in the spring. So it's got almost an autumn look in the spring. It's so pretty. And then it mellows out and just stays just a pure chartreuse color through the season. And we find that adding that color in adds a sense of peace to a flower bed. It also adds a cooling note to a flower bed, and I appreciate that so much out of this plant, and it never burns. It's in a pretty sunny spot. The leaves always look fresh. The blooms that come out are absolutely beautiful as well. They are clusters of pure white, bright white blooms that look beautiful with that chartreuse green foliage. The Glow Girl does bloom on old wood, so again, put it somewhere where you can just let it do its thing. That's what we've done. We've never had to prune on it, and it just does great every single year. Zone 3 through 9, so it also spans a really wide range of growing zones, including zone 3, which is so cold. The next group Number 6, Katon Asters. Now this is a very large group of plants, and they are a woody type ground cover shrub. I absolutely love these. We've got some around the pond called Little Dipper, and they stay fairly small. And you can get ones that grow really big too, but they help with so many different things. They help with erosion control, they help with weed suppression. They really bring almost 4 seasons of interest, because when they come out in the spring, their leaves are like little buttons, and they're deep green, super glossy, high gloss leaves. And then they bloom bright white profusely, bright white blooms all over it, and those blooms turn into super bright red glossy berries. And most of the time they carry those into the winter months, and they look pretty good for most of the winter. So it's one of those shrubs that I feel like ticks so many boxes and can help in so many different situations. And I thought it would look so good around our pond area, sort of like growing around the base of stones and maybe like toward the water's edge. I saw one on the aquascape tour that we just got to go on last week. There was a Katon Aster, I think in Brian's pond, planted right on the edge, and it was just going right down toward the water. And it just kind of stopped right at the water, where it touched the water. It was so pretty, and I thought, ooh, I need to add more of those. The Little Dipper is a zone 5 through 8, but like I said, there's a whole bunch of different varieties. Like one off the top of my head, Coral Beauty, I think that one grows wider, like 6 feet wide or so, and it grows in a zone 5 through 10, so it's a little bit more versatile that way, and it has more coral red berries. So not only will you find variations in growth habit and size, but you'll also find variation in berry colors. They do have pretty fall color too. It's usually a mix of, there's a lot of orangey kind of tones to them and a little bit of blush of red. The next one, number 7, is a category in and of itself as well, and that is the aronia or chokeberry plants. I have had the best luck with a variety called Lowscape Snowfire. Such pretty plants, and there's a ton of different varieties, ton of different growth habits, small, large, medium size, but they are one of the most tough and durable plants out there. They can handle heat, they can handle drought, they can handle salt. They are versatile in terms of clay, high pH. They just kind of take whatever you throw at them. As long as they have a sunny spot, they are going to be happy campers. And they are another one that produces the high gloss leaves, the profusion. Now, I don't have experience with all the varieties, but the Snowfire variety, absolutely covered in white blooms in the spring, and the pollinators just absolutely adored that plant. And when I see that going on, it makes me extra happy that I have that in my garden and that I chose that variety, and it makes me want to plant more because it's serving so many different purposes. The white blooms are followed by a glossy blueberry in the fall, and the color, the fall color on the Snowfire at least, and I'm pretty sure most of the Aronias are this way, bright fire red. I mean, just the most beautiful, stunning red color in the fall. So you really, you know, if the plant holds onto its berries and the birds haven't cleaned them all up, they will carry those berries into winter, and they provide really good forage for wildlife. It's kind of one of those ones where you're like, why don't I have more of these? The Snowfire is a zone 3 through 9, so again, it's pretty versatile in terms of growing zone. That variety gets about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, so it's a very manageable size, easy to tuck in. We've got it in a full sun area, full sun morning to night. On just drip irrigation, gets the same water as everything else, and it does really well on that, but it can handle drier conditions as well, which is great for us, and the heat, which is also great for us. It's supposed to be 107 today, I think. Number 8 is a dwarf birch, and I don't know how many varieties of those exist, but the one we have is the Sesky Gold. We've got several of them in our garden, out in the south garden, around the pond, and the thing I love about them is that they bring that chartreuse yellow vibe with kind of a smaller, more delicate looking leaf, and it's not a huge plant. Like, they grow 2 to 4 feet tall, about 1.5 to 3 feet wide-ish. I want to say mine stay about 3 feet tall. They don't get to the 4-foot side of things, and we never touch ours. That's the beauty of this shrub. It adds that cooling note of color, never have to touch it, survives on just regular drip irrigation. I think this is one of the more cold tolerant. I think there's 2 on this list, this one and the next one, that survive in a zone 2. So this one's a zone 2 through 7, and that's incredible. Incredibly tough. I also really like the color of their leaves when they emerge in the spring. They're kind of that yellow, red, orange mix. It's so pretty. Number 9 comes with a bit of a warning, but it's also a very amazing plant. It is a fall spirea called Mr. Mustard. And there are multiple different types of fall spirea out there. The things I love about it is that they kind of look like a fern. They have very ferny, delicate looking foliage that emerges pink, red, orange, yellow, green, like a mix of all those colors. It's So beautiful, but they can handle full sun, and they produce a white, sort of a stilby-esque looking bloom. We have a hard time getting a stilby to survive in our area. Even if we put a stilby, which is a perennial, not a shrub, but when we put them in even a shady spot with tons of water, they still want to fry in our heat. So if we can get a plant that will produce a similar bloom, but can handle our full sun out here, that's pretty incredible. Now the warning with this one is that it does sucker. Nothing near a sumac type of suckering. If you've ever experienced that, you know, we recently took out our tiger eye sumac because it was wanting to take over the land. This one we have not experienced as of yet, having it sucker like that. It'll produce a few here and there just right around the shrub, and I'm talking a few, like a small handful every single year. We've had ours in for 3 or 4 years at this point. And you know, we'll see as the years progress how the plant responds, but they're really easy to pull, and they really kind of just stay contained-ish in their spot. So a really good one if you've got an area where you just kind of want to let it naturalize, but it's not going to like spread like wildfire. Again, like keep in mind we are in an area that doesn't get a tremendous amount of rainfall, so we don't deal with the moisture that some of you might deal with, in which case it might spread a little bit faster. We do very targeted, efficient watering right at the root ball of the plant, so it's not like saturating or soaking out into the surrounding area, providing a really nice rich growing environment for plants. So anyway, just keep that in mind. It's a beautiful plant though. I love ours. We've got 3 of them out in the south garden, and I think that they are a beautiful texture in any garden. Did I mention that one's also a zone 2 through 7, so incredibly cold hardy. And number 10 is a plant that I never would have dreamed I would add onto a must plant in your garden list. Because, yeah, this category as a whole, I used to just, I don't know, just kind of skim over, but this variety in particular changed my mind about the category, and that is a ground cover juniper called Montana Moss. I put it in our garden thinking like, well, we'll see. I did like the color for a juniper. It's pretty dang soft. Most junipers are not super soft. Junipers as a whole, they're native to our area. They do really well for us. And this plant took off and just is absolutely stunning in our landscape. And I've got 2 more that I'm going to be planting out because of how well this variety has done. The thing I like about it the most is the color. It's kind of a blue-green, but there's an icy note to it. It adds a really beautiful color to the winter landscape, and I like the growth habit. It's not a tight hugging ground cover. It's got, you know, some height. I want to say it wants to top out at like 2.5 feet high, and it spreads out. I think the description says it'll spread out 3 to 5 feet, and ours is at least 8 feet. Our junipers really like it here. It's just an absolutely beautiful plant without ever needing to touch it ever, and it suppresses weeds. It does not want a lot of water. It's a very low water user. So if you can get something that brings that cooling color, so it cools down the area where it's planted, while not needing a lot of water, that's the kind of plants we need to lean on heavily in an area like ours. So it's one I'm going to add more of to our landscape. I think it's just so pretty. And since planting that one, I've planted, well, just one other variety, the Dobbs Frosted Juniper. It's a yellow-green ground cover juniper. I just was so enamored with the way this one grew. I thought I need to add more of that texture and some more of that kind of performance into our garden. And you guys, that is it for my list of 10 underrated shrubs that I think every garden should have. These honestly have performed so well for us in our garden, and I just always love to talk about things like that because I feel like if they will do well here. I mean, we've been over 105 for the past 2 weeks. We still have these shrubs looking as fresh as they did in the spring. Those are the type of plants we need more of in our garden, and I feel like there's so many of those. We could probably go on and on about all the different things that we could add in that do really well, but if you don't have some of these in your garden, I highly recommend them. I think they're great plants. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.